Fourth day or third day? Losing track again. Third day of June 2022. At least I got that part right. Welcome to the bizarre nuclear show. We're talking about nuclear, so welcome to the Death Cult investigative news show. I don't know, what do you call this? The nuclear proctologist kind of does it justice, but doesn't. I want everybody to be worried about, this is the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, so unless you're going to take your bike seats indoors, he might show up. And he being a little demon like the rest of them from the death cult, the bizarre, stupid, arrogant and hubris, pompous International Atomic Energy Agency. Boris Johnson now is started last Wednesday. Food is on the shelf from Fukushima. Enjoy. Not just Fukushima, it was the 14 prefectures that were actually banned in 55 countries. Don't let that worry about you. The nuclear industry is not going to let nothing happen to you. They love you too much. Japan promotes the idea that you're racist. You're racist if you avoid eating food from a nuclear wasteland, which is 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima, by the way. Are you a racist? Oh, I don't like Japanese, Dana. Well, you're okay. As long as you're not prejudiced against your food, you're a good person. Should evil, scum, degenerate, piece of shit Japan be charged with mass genocide due to shipping deadly radioactive food worldwide? Has anybody really got to stop and think about yes or no on that one, I wonder? It doesn't look like it. We got 100% yes. And then, see the Geiger counter? Once the Geiger counter gets exposed to a high number, it has to go back to the factory to be recalibrated, decontaminated, and recalibrated, if that's possible. And so in a nuclear wasteland, that thing would have broken right away. They're only going to measure gamma at best, and probably not do a very good job of that. We know for a fact that SafeCast Geiger counters, these are just criminals on a whole different level of crime. How are they getting away with that? Why does the world sit in silence? As the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time because you're being poisoned by the nuclear industry. You need to get it together. You got to go beat up tart industry. Nuclear activists be constantly spied upon because they want to emulate us, be good people, but they can't. And so they take those videos home and they fantasize about what it'd be like to be a good person, like an anti-nuclear activist. Anti-nuclear is what they call people they're scared the shit of. They're worried about crimes against humanity, see? Thinking about going to Tokyo? Are you actually gullible and thinking about going to Tokyo? Hang on a second. High radiation levels near Tokyo, 29,250,000 becquerels a square meter in the soil after it rained a single time. Did you know it rained more than once a year in Japan? This is per kilogram. 276,000 in Tokyo. 18 million becquerels. That's another study. How about another one? Tokyo area soil testing finds radioactivity levels. Oh shit, numbers. So you're supposed to evacuate Tokyo when that happens, see? Hang on, I'll get it right. Maybe. What am I doing? I give up. Let's do it the hard way. Bear with me. That's why you shouldn't click more than once, because what are you doing? My God. Is it really this bad? Let's try that. That looks pretty good. Tokyo area soil testing finds radioactivity in Chernobyl at holy shit levels. Well, that's forever, right? Now the numbers they're talking about, anytime you're ready, computer. So the numbers they're talking about there are lower than the numbers here, here, and here. Just 220 kilometers away. This is ground zero. By the way, they couldn't go back in there because the numbers were lower in those numbers for 7 years. That's the control room. They couldn't go back in there, but according to Arnie Gunnarsson,
the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
And so according to Arnie Gunnarsson, the fuel pools are still there at reactor 4. I put them up there where the fuel, basically the top of the reactor where the fuel pools are supposed to be. That's the building he's talking about over there. He doesn't know the fuel pools are gone, or he's a double agent. Right? Pretending he's an activist, but he's actually... His wife was a pro-nuclear spokesperson for 20 years. You really think he's anti-nuclear? Is there anybody out there that naive? Up to 1 million becquerels, or 1 million sieverts. 1 million sieverts. That's a hell of a lot of sieverts, Dana, I know. Well, what does that mean, Dana? Well, let's let Harvard University kind of explain that for you, because there's 2 Danas here. I got to get rid of one. Now we got 2. This is a Harvard.
And
after Fukushima.
In the US context, we think of REM, and I assume in the Japanese context, people would think of sievert. The fatal dose from whole body exposure, median dose is around 350, 400 REM, or 3.5 to 4 sievert.
Delivered pretty quickly.
Delivered over a period of hours, but in that case, death would follow over subsequent weeks.
So they'll die weeks later from a few hours of being in that environment.
In the Japanese context, people would think of sievert. The fatal dose from whole body exposure, median dose is around 350, 400 REM, or 3.5 to 4 sievert.
Delivered pretty quickly.
That's the same one, I'm sorry.
But that gives you an indication of the sort of hazard that you're concerned. So a few sieverts, if the dose looks as though it'll be more than 2 or 3 sieverts over a period of plume passage, for example, then you know that you're in a potentially lethal situation. Whereas speaking in microsieverts is not helpful.
And so these people are incredible plumes. Okay, so 1 million sieverts. How many nuclear scientists do you think went to that place? Oh, that's right, none. How many nuclear students and universities went there, Dana? None. Damage at Unit 2 is what prompted TEPCO to discuss evacuating Fukushima workers, because it burned continuously for several days. And a nuclear reactor burns continuously for 7 days. There is no fuel in the fuel pool, and the reactor core is gone China syndrome. Western Tokyo may have been contaminated when the radioactive plume fell to the ground after reactor 2 core was exposed. Reactor 2 burned continuously for several days, right? Reactor 3, which was the mixed oxide fuel facility, had incredible lethal, compared to the other reactors, billion times more lethal. And when it blows up, the blowing up is the fuel melts out, comes in contact with water. That causes an instant amount of hydrogen, and then oxygen gets introduced and detonates. They felt the explosion at reactor 3 25 miles away. 25 miles away. The little buildings you see there between the two stacks is 190 feet high. The remains of it is to your left of reactor 3. Fuel pools were at the very top of these reactor buildings. Obviously, that's not there no more. And that was decades of reactor cores. Around 3,400 assemblies. Each assembly is around 1,800 pounds. This is the reactor core. Obviously, that's gone too. In fact, when they use remote-controlled cranes to pull away some of the material, this was the stump that's left of reactor 3. So they built this built a structure around it from off-site, came in and laid it there with the cranes. It doesn't physically touch the remains, the fragile remains, because every time you have an earthquake, you know this is going to go into chain reaction. So they built this structure, laid this stupid machine on it, they built somewhere else, and then pretended that they were in the building getting fuel out of the fuel pool for the 10th anniversary. In a building that don't even exist, where the fuel pools are at the top of the buildings. By the way, they done that for reactor 4 in 2013 and 14. They pulled the same scam on you. And like this, when I say scam, this was huge. There's 3,450 spent fuel assemblies in each reactor building because they keep decades of reactor cores there. It's around 10 million pounds. So this is one of many, many medias that claimed they were in top of reactor 4 looking at a fuel pool. I know that sounds crazy, but they actually done this.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima-Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
Yeah, obviously this is insanity, all the media doing that one. The ambassador, Japan's ambassador, writes to UN Secretary General, it's no exaggeration to say the fate of Japan and the whole world depends on number 4 reactor. Now, they're pretending it looks like that. That's the official picture. And this is the official Photoshop. You got the homeless in paper suits with perfect bags, with no tears, no dirt, no tools, no work gloves, coming out, pretending they're coming out of a building that you can't physically go inside of. This is lethal doses. So what they done there, they built this structure off-site, brought it in of reactor 4, and then they put panels on it. They put panels on it, but that's what it actually looks like. And here's the back side of it. They didn't clean up the debris on the back because, it doesn't matter, I suppose. It's just a scam. Besides, that's lethal doses. And then they pretended it looked like that on the inside of there. But it can't. It doesn't. The laws of physics don't work that way. The building was completely destroyed. And it's easy to forget what the word destroys means. Look at the guts hanging out of the building. Now pretend that everything is normal on the inside. It looks like that. It's hard to do, right? On the back of it, though, they couldn't clean it up. This was all done with cranes anyway. It was a cover story. But why go through such a cover story? You can see the buildings don't physically touch each other because the remains of reactor 4 are very fragile. Just standing there, you're going to get a few sieverts, meaning you're going to die in the next few weeks. So these were homeless with their paper suits. And they done that scam with both reactor 3 to your left and reactor 4 to your right. Okay. And so it's hard to imagine that a couple of buildings can cause as much controversy as it has. But as we go through this with you, you'll can make up your own mind based on facts, and you have a really good foundation now already to work with. So this was the United Nations, which is a corporation of militaries, 195 militaries. United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. They took this down after sight about 4 weeks ago, because I was using it regularly, and I was telling people and linking to it, and so they took it down. Average disposition density of cesium on the soil, so that the first row is the community, the next row is the population of the community, the next row is the atomic decays, and just cesium, just gamma, because, you know, alpha neutrons and beta don't exist. So I'm going to really raw throat. Last couple of weeks, pretty rough. That's probably better. What is it, I wonder, I can have on hand for when my throat gets raw? And it's not raw in the sense of it hurts, it's just raw. Yelling at the microphone for a decade will do that to you. Average disposition density of cesium in the communities. Okay, so this row here is atomic decays. Has 230,000 gamma pulsing energy per square meter, the size of your dinner table, throughout your whole city and surrounding areas of just gamma. So it's well over 1 million, because you got beta and alphas and neutrons in equal amount minimum. But it can't just be cesium. It's absurd to suggest it is. So this row here and this row, there's population in these communities. They're growing food and shipping it worldwide in these nuclear wastelands. What the community does, and these numbers does, is now you can say that whole region, it can't be just, radiation wasn't flying around looking for communities, right? Oh, there's a community, let's get it. It's symmetrically, but it's unfortunately, as I showed you, it's all the way past Tokyo. And so eating food from Japan should be a crime. It should be illegal to grow food, and the world should help Japan with clean food, see? And so this is a fraction of the documentation, by the way. I have to dig out the rest of it because they took the site down. So the air 150 kilometers from the plant is as radioactive as the air close. And all these different communities across the single prefecture. Remember, food was banned in 14 prefectures. Air sample in Tokyo, 270 times more contaminated. Again, you see him talking only about cesium-137. That should terrify you that they're doing that. In North America, the radiation doses in the Northeast and the Great Lakes were equal to the West Coast in North America. This was one of the studies over there, many studies of the radioactive fallout. This model is Japan's model based on 16 days. That one over there is the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs from spraying the salt water on the reactor cores and the fuel rods that are in the ocean, hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. So this is the Atlantic, that's the Pacific, that's Europe. That's the planet 16 days. So you don't want to eat food from Japan or the planet Earth, but certainly not Japan. Bummer, right? Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. So you got models of radiation covering the entire planet with academic studies of huge numbers sequestered into the population. It can't be just the humans, it has to be all the other species. And it's the most carcinogenic thing that exists. Oh, and it's carbon-free, Dana. Oh, yeah, that's right. Somebody told me that on April Fools. I didn't believe them then. I won't be believing them now. And then kicking your nuts, IAEA today admitted there's no such thing as a safe level, that the standards they're using are based on natural stuff, not man-made. Pretty reassuring, right? That make you feel all warm inside. You got any idea what kind of betrayal that statement is right there? Everything in the IAEA should be swinging from trees, basically, all the way back. Renowned nuclear policy expert, every amount of radiation exposure increases your risk. The words cancer should only be invoked along with 1,800 illnesses. Your immune system is compromised. You're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless. There is no safe level of man-made anthropogenic radiation. There's a cause and effect. The minute it gets in your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Trying to build a tumor around the invader. It's a biological weapon. It's much worse than a biological weapon in the way that it attacks your immune system. Children's risk of cancer from radiation 10 to 100 times higher than an adult. So cats and dogs' vulnerabilities is much, much higher. Animals, birds, insects are much higher again. See how that works? A significant rise in cancer risk within 5 years after exposure to low-dose radiation. 12% increase after 40 millisieverts. See, and you remember what he said earlier about using millisieverts? It's because millisieverts is for like gamma shines, X-rays, neutron bursts. Radiation contamination is supposed to be measured in atomic decays per second. And I was going to point up there where the camera's supposed to be, and I didn't. The battery's just right there. I can get it and poke it in, but I can do that and play a video, could I? I missed my Geiger counter already. Let's find a short video. I know what you're saying, Dana. Don't give us anything with Geraldine Thomas. Don't be a bastard. Ooh. God, I got way too much on my computer, don't I? This is Catherine Higley. She's going to explain to you how the radiation policymakers actually work. This doesn't terrify you. I don't know what will. And she got a whole bunch of criminals with her. She got the one-armed bandit. Miles O'Brien is there. He no longer has two arms. Japan cut one of his arms off. You got the whack job from Tokyo, from TEPCO Electric there. You got Vetter from Stanford, or Berkeley. You got the former Nuclear Regulatory Agency's head in the white dress. And you got the degenerate from the National Press Club. So this is journalist. And she's going to give them their marching orders.
When I was trying to pull this talk together, not only will I sort of get a little philosophical about the impacts and the like and try to put things in context, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about who are these radiation experts that get trotted out in events like this, or that get to participate in various activities and analysis to make pronouncements about is something safe or not safe. And if you look, you'll see organizations that are often represented. The ICRP, International Commission on Radiological Protection, a premier organization. You'll see UNSCEAR and IRPA. So UNSCEAR is the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. IRPA, the International Radiation Protection Association. The IAEA and some of its folks, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our own U.S. NCRP. And then there are a number of other organizations. So there's PAHO, there's the Health Physics Society, there's World Health Organization. All of these will bring in, as necessary, experts to speak to you on issues related to radiation protection, radiation safety, and impacts. But if you go a little deeper and you start looking at these organizations, the ICRP, for example, very well known. It's been operating nearly 100 years, not quite. Main commission, 10 people. It's got 5 standing committees. So it's 100-ish folks. I lead one of the 5 committees. If you look at the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation that looked at the effects from Chernobyl, from Fukushima, from other areas, and that has about 30, roughly, countries that are represented in that group. If you start teasing through these pictures, you're going to see the same people on every one of those organizations. So the same people from ICRP are on UNSCEAR, they're in IRPA. If you look at the NCRP, again, the U.S. organization that advises the country on radiation protection issues, it's 100 people, a lot of gray-haired 100 people. And most of them are part of UNSCEAR, are part of IRPA, are part of ICRP, participate in IAEA. So the result, or the real world, is that there's not that many folks that really do radiation safety, radionuclide transport, dose calculations, all of this in the world. It's a pretty small club. And we wear 20 hats. Today I put on 3 pins, and I could put on a whole bunch more, but Health Physics Society, ICRP, Certified Health Physicist, I've got NCRP on there, I've done IAEA. And so the point is, we're a small group, you should cherish us.
Should throw you in a fucking wood chipper is more like it. Hey, look what showed up. I can't see it. Bastard. Anyway, it's DCA, 100 grams of it. DCA, that one there, I think. Oh yeah, there it is on top. Ships to Canada. Ships to Canada. So that's the purity. That's the pure DCA. Right there. That's the one that showed up today. That's the one that showed up today. And there might be another way I can show it. Might be another way that'll, let me see. I can zoom right in and hold my hand up. No. Fucker, man. But you can kind of see the similarities, right? See the bottom part of the bottle? Anyway, it don't matter. What matters is we got it. That showed up on Thursday. I wasn't expecting it until close to the 6th, right? Okay, so anyway, Thursday after the show, I checked Amazon to see if it showed up. Or, I'm sorry, because I have a tracker to see where it was to at that time, and said it was delivered. And I checked on the front doorstep, I didn't see it, so it was probably 2:30 in the morning. I went down to the post office. We have outdoors boxes, and sure enough, the DCA was there. Okay. So this is, first thing I done was took a good gram and mixed in a bit of water because it's pure, it's caustic, right? The next thing I done was I got a mold on my chest, and so Thursday night, well, it was early Friday morning, then 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, a.m. I took a little tiny bit, put it on a plate with 2 drops of water off my finger onto the little tiny pile. I mixed it up with a Q-tip, and then I rubbed it into the mold. And so I done the same thing Friday night, Saturday night, and this afternoon. And when I went to do it this afternoon, about half of it chipped off in just 3 days. It's not bleeding or anything. It's just like all the hard stuff on top of the mold is gone. And it just, if not chipped off, it flaked off. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? It was kind of like dry putty where it just breaks up on you when I was trying to apply it this evening. So half the mold is gone in 3 days of directly applying it. Now, I've seen the same thing happen with worts, but after 2 applications, the worts had disappeared. That was quite a while ago. But to see it happen to mold, wow, to a mold, I think that was pretty telling. Kathleen Higley and the people there with her, I'm going to have to do that video again because YouTube took down my main site. Significant rise in cancer risk within 5 years of exposure to low doses of radiation. I hope that's not a kidney stone kicking in again. Thyroid cancer risk lasts the entire life after radiation exposures. Rice grown nearby Fukushima plant cleared for sales. Farmer: I wouldn't eat it, and we feel guilty about growing it. I got that video there somewhere. Let's play that video. If I can figure out where I put it. That's probably where it's supposed to be. Somewhere else. Because normally I can find that right away. Who knows what I got done with that. I'm a little surprised I didn't find it that time. Because it's a translated video, right? I got one more spot I can check quickly. Oh, well, I can't remember. Just keep it rolling here. So we got a poll here. If you eat that food, you're going to get sick for sure. Should evil Japan be charged with mass genocide due to shipping deadly radioactive food worldwide? Yes, of course. 100% of the people agree with me. The Australian catastrophic radiation contamination at rice fields 60 kilometers from Fukushima Daiichi. No crops for 300 minutes. I mean years. 300 years. They didn't stop growing food there. Tokyo professor: every organism in Fukushima is contaminated. The prefecture is contaminated with radiation. 1.4 million becquerels a kilogram in worms' feces, 60 kilometers from the meltdown. So this means you can't consider growing food in that environment. 100 becquerels of cesium before Fukushima was nuclear waste. It was actually 17 in France. After 100 becquerels a kilogram is safe to eat. So previous cesium limits, which is just the gamma, it's a scary one, but it's just one of many, that they don't acknowledge the others, and that should terrify you. Previous limits were 0.1 becquerel a kilogram. Now, 5,000 times higher. No, Dana says 1,000 times higher. No. See, the original limits were 500 becquerels a kilogram. They changed it a year later. Government had drastically reduced. That's probably the scariest words you're ever going to hear. Levels of radiation in food. Well, in the context, I should say. 100 becquerels a kilogram. Once again, they're only talking about gamma, and they're not actually checking, or they would never even grow food there. Current limit of 500 becquerels per kilogram of radiation for meat, fish, vegetables, you name it, is expected to be lowered by about 1/5 in April, which has to be the next year. So the upcoming change is welcome, but why is it safe to eat food with 500 becquerels a kilogram now of gamma and not 6 months from now? Because it's not safe, period. Shocking that the officials made it mandatory to use Fukushima rice in school lunches. Hopefully it's shocking. I don't know if it is anymore, but hopefully it is. Radiation checks of food in Japan are only 1% of what Belarus checked. In Japan, so don't be a murderer. Don't let Japan do what it's doing. Rice planted 10 miles from Fukushima. The victims can't stay in town overnight, but they're intended for sale. The food is. It works this way. X-ray-like images shows how radioactivity spread throughout the bodies of Fukushima wildlife. Oh, and by the way, they've seen that in the trees too with X-rays. The equivalent of miscarriages, stillbirths, malformations. A groundbreaking study reveals Fukushima nuclear waste is poisoning the wildlife. 99% of offsprings died after eating what's considered low-level contaminated food. And the high abnormality rates included severe and rare deformities for the wildlife. This is why we see an extinction event playing out. Because all the stuff it hovers close to the surface and assimilates into the ecosystem, but it's still going to pump energy every second or so at the speed of light, almost the speed of light, in every direction. So gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas don't mix. So they pulse energy almost at the speed of light. When they hit each other, they change direction. It's called a braking effect. It creates a brutal X-ray. Particularly like in forests and stuff like that. It'll sterilize the bacteria, the fungus, and all the species. It'll exterminate them. And it does it at a relentless pace, as long as it takes, until it's finally exterminated. This stuff will be around long after the human experience. Fukushima radiation causes serious biological effects, and you know why now. Disastrous widespread impacts now being revealed. Major irreversible shift in the ecosystem. High rates of abnormality, mortality, severe damage to human necks. Yes, of course, because we're up the food chain a little ways. Half the people in Japan were close to being evacuated. 150 million people plus were close to being evacuated because your power plant broke down. That's the most anti-nuclear reason you'll ever come across right there. Isn't it? Well, if the power plants, imagine, if Toronto's power plants break down, half of Canada could be lost. Permanently. This half on the East Coast. Well, it's not like they didn't know what they were doing when they built this stuff. Half the people were close to being evacuated. And they decided not to do it because the nuclear industry would have been under siege and all the universities would have been prosecuted. All the good stuff would have happened, right? Evacuation after Fukushima, in another interview, could have reached 50 million people. If you got to evacuate 50 million people because your power plant broke down, and the only way that you can keep this technology alive is by censoring people like me, you are the problem. You are morons. You're morons, the people that censor me. You're the definition of stupid. And thank goodness you're going to leave a digital record, and we'll get to that over the next few years. The truth will come out about what you're doing. We will find you. Your children will call for the death penalty. Japan's safety standards and radiation levels for children are unconscionable. So take that same one, put instead of medical expert, or Japan, put United Nations, NATO's, Canada, and the rest of them. America's safety standards and radiation levels for children are unconscionable. The IAEA, I don't know. I can't keep hacking my voice. Japan's safety standards and radiation levels for children are unconscionable. I'm coughing hard and I apologize, but there's not much I can do till I figure out something that works. 35.8% of Fukushima children have thyroid cysts. It's 13,646 out of 40,000. Used to be one in a
でまさに
million.
今そこに元気な人が死んでくんだよね。
But there's clear evidence rates have risen. Before the disaster in 2011, the rate of thyroid cancer was between 1 and 2 cases in every million children.
So from 1 to 2 per every million to 350,000 out of a million. Wonderful nuclear, huh? It's true, the nuclear industry hates women and children because radiation impacts them the most severe, so obviously they must hate them the most. Japanese mayors say students are gaining knowledge by eating radioactive food grown in a nuclear wasteland in school lunches. That's such a strange statement. It's hard to believe the police haven't stopped him in the middle of the town and beat the shit out of him. Said, he's a pro-nuclear scumbag. Don't be a chicken, the mayor tells the parents who are concerned their children are eating radioactive lunches. Mayor? Can't trust your mayors in Japan, that's for sure. Japanese Deputy Prime Minister talks about learning from the Nazis. Previously said to let the elderly people hurry up and die. You know, the people that built the country. These are boxes they put the victims in with Geiger counters out in front of their house that don't work. And the ultimate insult to Geiger counter is only going to measure unisieverts. Like the arrogance they have for the people, and their vending machines sing, please don't give up on Fukushima, whenever they go to buy their cigarettes or whatever. Japan's professor on Fukushima media, children are bleeding from the nostrils, skin diseases, cardiovascular diseases. Radioactive cesium's causing hole in the hearts of the children. Doctor, more and more often children complain of circulatory disturbances, tiredness, dizziness after Fukushima. Government promo is less than an x-ray, a stomach x-ray of radiation per day. So please come visit the nuclear wasteland of Fukushima. Children can even go outside because they weren't allowed to go outside for the first 2 years and play. Remember them? Remember them days? Keeping the victims there and then studying them like lab rats on top of that. You tell me the nuclear industry is not insane? Then you're not being realistic. You're an asshole. Women from Fukushima, it's as if they're in a gas chamber. Children are breathing radiation every moment. The whole story is absurd. You want to eat food from there? Children over 11 becquerels a kilogram of cesium start to see heart problems. How are you going to avoid it now, after Fukushima? After decades of nuclear wars, you call them nuclear testing, same bomb, same radioactive fallout. Single Tokyo ward has 13 schools with radiation levels above safety standards. Let me say that again, maybe that didn't sink in. A single, just one of the many Tokyo ward had 13 schools with radiation levels above safety standards, which is a polite way of saying evacuate now. So this is nuclear universities for you. They gave the children, 90,000 plus of them, dosimeters that you can't read. You have to send away to the American, British universities, and they're not going to send you back a result. All the dosimeters are considered no names attached, just the age and the area, right? You're studying them like actual rats. Rather than move them out, they're using that to say, well, the kids weren't too bad. And they're going to talk about millisieverts or microsieverts. And anybody that reassures the public by talking about millisieverts and microsieverts should be considered a subhuman species and should be met with aggressively. Children's health problems are increasing. Incurable stomach aches, chest pains, nosebleeds that don't stop, diarrheas. The bizarre. Now, Japan Times is one of the biggest medias in Japan. It's equal to CBS in America or CBC in Canada. And Yoshi Shimatsu had wrote a eloquent dissent in defense of me. He used to be the editor for the Japan Times Sunday edition, but Japan demonized me many times. It's okay for babies to drink radioactive milk because adults have natural potassium-40 in their bodies. Like, you really got to be some twisted sicko to suggest that potassium-40 has any of the attributes of man-made. And that's what you see going on there. There's a hang on in a second, see if I can get lucky and find. I got it everywhere, I just don't know where. What's the light? I know it's going to be here somewhere. Oh, luck would have it. My memory's a bit better than it was yesterday. Let me see here, we got it. Just want to make sure I got it right. Here we go. So becquerels is atomic disintegration per second. A curie is 37 billion becquerels. And it could be 120 curies in a gram of cesium, for instance. So you're talking a lot of radioactive isotopes, enough to poison everything on the planet in just a couple of ounces. Potassium-40 is equal to 0.00071 curies per gram. 71 10-millionth curies per gram. 71 10-millionths of a curies per gram. Strontium-90 is 140 curies per gram. And of course, 140 curies is basically 37 billion times disintegration. Let's do the numbers again so you can see what a gram of this stuff is actually like. So 37 billion times 140. Is that the equation? Yeah, 37 billion and billion Dana times 140. Oh my God, where'd you go? 140 equals 5,180,000,000,000 anthropogenic man-made isotopes per gram. So each of the reactors had around 3,400 assemblies into them at 1,800 pounds each. So take 10 million pounds, to break it down into grams, multiply it by our number, 5.2 billion, 5.2 trillion atoms. And so you get a single atom in your body, or an insect or bird or animal or mammal or human or something like that. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life, and over decades will try to build a tumor around it. So a gram of it being released into the environment is a significant biological attack. It's a biological weapon because it has those particular attributes for millions of years, right? Just saying. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested had diabetes. The head of Tokyo area medical clinics were expecting diabetes in children from Fukushima radiation. School had children clean up highly contaminated areas and relocate the dirt without telling the parents. Well, children are not supposed to be in that environment, see, and that's the ludicrousness of this story, is that they kept the victims in the nuclear wasteland, done everything they could to stop them from leaving on top of that. Senior scientists, irreversible heart damage for children with a 50 becquerels a kilogram. 50 becquerels a kilogram in adults is permanent lesions on their organs. I apologize. Got to get a mute button. Got to get a mute button. Got to get a mute button. I try to memorize where my volume button is each time I'll do that. I got to find something, some shake or drink or something to stop my throat from getting hoarse. But even if it gets terrible, I'm still going to have to try to tell the story. But I've got to try to fix it for sure, because that makes more sense, obviously, right? Japan's nuclear agency hides the children's radiation results. They had 3,000 of these so-called Geiger counters, measuring in unisieverts. The ultimate insult in a nuclear wasteland is to do that. They put 3,000 Geiger counters in a single community. So you can study everybody like incredible lab brats. Alice in Wonderland was used to convince children in Japan nuclear power is safe. So they got way too much power if they're doing stuff like this, obviously, right? They're completely out of control. There's no checks and balances, or they couldn't do stuff like this. And so they're a threat. These are the biggest threat to humanity are the pro-nuclear and the nuclear academics and the nuclear universities. These are the biggest threats to all species on the planet, including themselves. Their completely generation of inbreeding have desensitized them to reality. Fukushima children not grown in weight. The average increase is down 75%. Some gained only a single pound in a year, because they're in a nuclear wasteland. Local government is testing school lunches after children have already eaten. We've covered stories where the cafeteria, like the farmers, were given Geiger counters and said if it gets over a certain limit, it's not safe. But the Geiger counter is only measuring gamma if it actually works at all. You really got to know what you're doing. Local government testing school lunches after children have already eaten. 33 of the 60 prefectures, municipalities check the children's food at some point, they claim. With man-made, a lot of these Geiger counters are from scumbag safecast. Adult volunteers, Japanese students for decontamination areas. Adults. They're not adults, they're murderers. Tokyo tea leaves 2,700 becquerels a kilogram of just gamma picked by the elementary school children. Nothing says batshit crazy quite like nuclear, does it? Government model showed Fukushima radioactive gas near Tokyo skyrocketed 10 billion times normal levels after 11. Very high concentration recorded at all monitoring posts in the northern hemisphere. Really, is anybody shocked? Is anybody surprised? Is anybody I guess a lot of people don't know. Well, I mean, unless they come to my site, then they get up to speed pretty friggin' quick. But if you're going to your local institutions looking for answers, you are delusional, unfortunately. There's so many plume models, and then there's so many studies to back it up. Inhaling just one hot particle can cause one of the 1,800 diseases like we're talking about. Officials sharply raised the radiation levels for victims to get iodine pills after the nuclear meltdown. 75 times higher than the crazies at the World Health Organization, the United Nations. I like how United Nations have all these separate departments, and they actually put them off against each other sometimes because people don't even realize they're one and the same. It's 100% control opposition arguing with control opposition. So you can't come up with the facts. 75 times higher than children or the World Health Organization. 75 times higher than the World's Health Organization recommends for children. All of eastern Japan evacuated if the Fukushima plant was abandoned. Bring out your dead. It's time to make a geezer suicide squad. The Fukushima tapes. 60 and older should be prepared to die at your power plant. Yeah, every community should have a few of these things, eh? How is this allowed to happen? Why is this on our planet? Tokyo vice governor suggested a Fukushima draft. Tokyo, a big city's vice governor shouldn't have that kind of power, first off. Worse than radioactive rain after Fukushima radioactive fallout was suspended near Earth's surface. Earth's surface. They're talking about the whole planet, Earth. Not just Japan. But this was because nuclear pulses energy, so it's its own little engine too, right? It can travel across the planet without the jet streams. It doesn't need the jet streams. It's always pulsing energy, so it's always levitating. Unless it gets knocked down with rain and assimilated into your plants and your trees and your food sources, and it does. Potential health risks, especially for children who are breathing closer to the ground. But you're in the gamma shine right there. That's the X-ray zone. Because all the gammas and alphas and neutrons are pulsing, hitting each other almost at the speed of light, changing direction. At the speed of light almost. Because gammas and alphas, neutrons and betas, they don't mix. And so they have a braking effect almost at the speed of light, causes X-rays. This is one of the originally nuclear power plants said not a single atom would get off their sites with their original charters. South of Tokyo, that's the opposite direction. That's towards Hiroshima, Nagasaki. North of Tokyo is towards Fukushima. South is the opposite, right? 12,400 becquerels a kilogram cesium next to a children's swimming pool. Well, like, you got to multiply that by 64 to get a square meter. I fucking despise this piece of shit right there. That disgusting liar. 75% of Fukushima's children, 300,000 children rather, are going to school so contaminated they would be radiation control areas in nuclear power plants. I put his picture in that to remind me to come out and cover him a few more times over it. Cesium at triple governmental limits on radioactive compost used in fallen leaves. United Nations accused of underestimating the disaster's impacts on human health. No, it's 100% cover-up. It's 100% on purpose. The U.S. military had orders not to get within 230 miles, except for Navy. Potassium iodine given to all defense personnel and families within 200 miles. Over 1,100 kinds of man-made anthropogenic radioactive isotopes detected. So there. Japan's worst-case scenario assumes significant public exposures occur by the end of March the 12th, the day after, because of pressure build-up that would damage the number one. Because the fuel pools were at the top of the building. It's the worst design imaginable. If those people are still alive, they should be prosecuted. This is genocide. It's 100% genocide. That's why we got a poll tonight, by the way. Should evil, despicable, disgusting Japan be charged with mass genocide due to shipping deadly radioactive food worldwide? Absolutely. Japan's media, things are going badly. Fukushima, the same as the war, says the military officer in charge of the forces at the plant, concerned that workers on site do not consent to join the battle. The radio, because you're going into a nuclear death zone. People were held hostage. Unprecedented ocean contamination. Unprecedented ocean contamination, and leaks are out of control. Fukushima worker told us all about all of the deaths happening at the nuclear plants. North America will not be safe. This model is 19 days after, by the way. North America will not be safe from Fukushima radiation if plants keep leaking. Animals suddenly died on the west coast after Fukushima. The whole world noticed this strange phenomenon. Fatally high levels of radioactive material has entered the ocean. Serious pollution is ongoing. And so the plume fell out worldwide. And so stuff that gets down to the soil, that comes back to the surface each year worldwide. A lot of us liberated back into the environment through evaporation, convection, through forest fires, through droughts. Radioactive material like cesium were brought back to the surface soil each year by plant growth and also pollination, radioactive pollen. Wherever it lands, it radiates whatever it touches. It's truly a plague. Top Hong Kong newspaper. Fukushima is a global threat. No shit, Batman. The situation can prove catastrophic for the world. Well, it kills all the fungus and bacteria in the soil worldwide in increments over a few decades. Guess what the outcome of that is? Actually, don't bother. Mind-blowing die-off of seabirds underway from California to Alaska. I was on research expeditions when this was happening. Hang on. I was on research expeditions when this was happening. And the die-offs are... Hang on. I'm having problems here tonight. The whole coastline was incredibly radioactive. Fukushima is absolutely horrifying. Radiation will be entering the Pacific for decades. There's no end in sight. Well, they won't admit they got a problem, is the problem, right? So you can't come up with a solution if you're not going to admit you got a problem. Suppose I hit that one. Plague along the west coast. Plague. Radioactive. The atomic plague. Take your kids to the beaches and see them before they're gone. I was out on the ocean at that point. 2014 on research. The species were wiped out all the way from Vancouver to Alaska. The Pacific coastline. We've done it 6 years. Some years multiple times, right to Alaska and back, doing species counts over many months. So Palisades, I'll probably butcher that name, I'm sure. Nuclear plants, radioactive material could be moved by barges on Lake Michigan. And Lake Michigan spills in all the Great Lakes. And also all the way down, because everything on the east side of the Rockies goes to the Atlantic. So if it can't get here, that's part of the Atlantic, it'll get to the St. Lawrence. But it's going to destroy the biggest freshwater sources in the northern hemisphere. It's the stupidest thing we could ever conceive is putting nuclear power plants on our freshwater repositories. And all of America's laboratories, the Argonne National Laboratory, blah, 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 they're all on the biggest aquifers in America. Strategically put there to contaminate it on purpose. Yeah, the species were wiped out completely from Vancouver all the way to Alaska. They never recouped. They never came back. New Jersey company, which is a Chris Singh, right? He wants to move the radioactive material by barge. When it comes to the nuclear industry, you can't trust them. You're a lunatic if you trust them. If you put 5 nickels on your coffee table and somebody from the nuclear industry came in, they're going to steal at least one of those nickels. They can't help themselves. Czech energy company switches away from Russian nuclear fuel. Look at this place, right by farmland. Nuclear power plants surrounded by farmlands. Idiots. Nuclear power plants surrounded by farmlands. They just can't help. They got to find a way to be evil, right? Poison you through your food sources. So they're going to switch contracts with France's Framatome. Right? Framatome was born after Riva went bankrupt, which is Japanese or French government. They went bankrupt so they didn't have to deal with their obligations for 1 billion years. And the Temelin nuclear power plant, so look it up, and it's surrounded by farms. Lots and lots of farmland all around it. And it's the strangest thing you're ever going to see. That this industry has been actively poisoning you through your food sources in your supermarkets. Targeting you, I should say. You need to wake up. You need to owe up to what's happening. You need to admit that you got a problem. All the fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation into your farms. The fuel pools are all still splitting the same amount of atoms they were splitting to power millions of homes. Now it's going into the farms on a scale that would terrify you if you actually understood what I'm talking about. The whole story is absurd. We got a poll. Did I mention that? Should evil be charged with mass genocide? Evil nuclear industry be charged with mass genocide due to ship of deadly radioactive food worldwide? And we got a stunning 100% people. Way to go, folks. You're awesome. Rochdale nuclear test veteran demands official recognition. 70-something years later, the industry's still doing everything they can to victimize the victims. 70 years of being victimized by the nuclear industry. How can you trust an industry like that? A man who witnessed horrific nuclear tests in the 50s had vowed to press on with his quest for those who took part to receive formal government recognition. He was 18 years old when he was sent to the nuclear wasteland, which used to be a Christmas Island, used to be an incredible, beautiful oasis, just like the Bikini Atolls. Nuclear industry, like, we can't have that on our planet. We're going to destroy that with nuclear. The actual paradises on our planet destroyed by the nuclear industry, and it never stopped. Now he's 84. He says people were treated as guinea pigs and have suffered a range of health problems. At the time, he was only wearing a pair of shorts, a shirt, and sunglasses. He said, it felt like my blood was boiling. The palm trees on the island where he was 20 miles away were scorched. That was the hydrogen bombs. So the radiation fallout from them was brutal. That was brutal. They're just waiting for everybody to die, and then they'll admit that maybe a few of them got sick. Nuclear industry is insane, eh? Generation after generation of the nuclear industry refusing to acknowledge the victims. What does that tell us? He lost his son to cancer 4 months ago. Or at 4 months. And he blamed it on his exposure to radiation. And rightfully so. And Rebecca Long Bailey, is an MP, is calling for nuclear testing veterans to get a medal. And bless your heart. The UK is currently the only nuclear power who hasn't shown recognition to the veterans and has not offered any form of compensation or issued a medal. Yeah, Britain is disgusting anyway, right? And the ultimate insult, the Ministry of Defense said it was committed to considering any new evidence. Did anybody actually believe that? Can you imagine what kind of lowlife you must be to say that? Really? It was flat out telling them to get lost. That's what that was. The Clean Energy Canada, ARC, teams up with Hatch, which is for the New Brunswick small modular reactor deployment. So they're taking over the government, right? In the 70s. The nuclear industry and the universities and your medias and your regulatory agencies for the deployment of ARC Canada's advanced small modular reactors. Their agreements, June the 29th, 2022, a few days ago. sodium cooled fast reactor, like the one at Santa Susana, which is 460 times more radiation released than 3 Mile Island. Everywhere you look at the nuclear industry, if you understand the science, you're disgusted, you're revolted, you're horrified, you're mortified. It's everywhere. Well, clearing my throat like this seems to help. That doesn't work, but it helps. It's just too bad. I need a foot paddle because I got to do it every couple of minutes to cut out the volume. Be like playing the piano. Which operates successfully as U.S. government's Argonne National Laboratory, which is built right on top of one of that part of the country's biggest freshwater aquifers that is radioactive. They're spending tens of millions trying to clean up an aquifer. The water moves out of it all the time, right? The teaming agreement between ARC Canada and Hatch marks a significant milestone in the plan to deploy the small modular reactors for ARC. So this is sedition being carried out by this facet of the government. Small modular reactors will have 35 times more high level waste, or intermediate level waste, 30 times more high level, and 5 times more fuel rods because they're so inefficient. By the way, they don't even have a working model. It's a complete fantasy. And both of these were funded by the Canadian government on top of that. Just to create the company in the first place. That story is insane. The Canadian government in New Brunswick started up a company and then was given $10 million by New Brunswick government. The company gave out $5 million to each one of these companies, and then they dissolved the company they started up. And these two nuclear industries now were born out of that. So it was an insider ripping off the Canadians and then using this to extort Canadians for decades. And we don't need it, right? Renewables have conquered it. We just refuse to acknowledge it. Hatch plans to expand its presence at St. John's and Fredericton in New Brunswick. Because we covered all this over the last couple of years, these two companies. Moltex, which was a British company, right? And is infested eastern Canada now. These are plagues, these types of people. They're the definition of cockroach and nuclear atomic plague. By the early 2030s, they're hoping to have a small modular reactor at the current disaster in New Brunswick. They call it a nuclear power plant. They just got a 10-year extension. That was asking for a 25-year extension, so it had no oversight whatsoever. So it could do whatever it wanted with small modular reactors. There'd be no oversight. Pretty sneaky, right? Pretty sneaky. Sneaky scumbags are still sneaky scumbags. Where are we to here? Yeah, good night, Albert. He's got to stop, drop, and roll. Sorry, Albert, I couldn't resist it. Yeah, and the university tries to destroy a center for nuclear medicine, which is awesome, I thought. When I read that, I was like, awesome. Authorities were called. They called the police because somebody was trying to destroy from the inside, disenfranchise it from the university. Because nuclear medicine is a scam, right? Let's face it. It's a 100% scam. Imagine this poor soul. I didn't know life without nuclear bombs. And the media forgot to put in the word nuclear. The media forgot to put in the word nuclear. There's media. There's no media. There's scumbag, but there's no media. Jeannie Sharp Howerton clearly remembers the nuclear tests. All she had to do was step on her porch, and it's not the first time we heard that, right? And she'd have a direct line of sight to the detonations. First there was the flash. That's just a terrifying story, you know? My goodness. This is Australia. Looks like I missed the headline. No, that is the headline. That's right. Tremendous cowardice in the politics over nuclear debate. Well, nuclear is illegal in Australia. It's in the Constitution or Bill of Rights or whatever it is they're using, their doctrines. Australia's foreign editor. So what if he's a foreign editor for a corporation? Why is he the arbiter of what's good or bad? It's an opinion, it's a conjecture, right? But here he is, he's calling out the government when it comes to a nuclear debate. There's no such thing as a nuclear debate. There's controlled opposition debates that looks like a debate. There's no such thing as a nuclear debate. We've never actually had, we don't really have any examples of it in the public sphere. You can't get the reliable power on basis of renewables. Now remember, we covered this last week. If the wind's not blowing, it doesn't matter whether you got 100 wind turbines or 1,000,000, you get no power. This is the same excuse over and over. But you can put pumped or compressed air storage anywhere where you dig mine shafts and you compress air down there. So you can have storage right away too. It doesn't take very long to make it. And if they're on Sky Australia, this is the definition of sedition, right? Every country got a couple of medias that are despicable traitors. Sky News in Australia is one of them. They even look like vicious thugs. Look at them, for God's sakes. She's been through the ringer a couple of 100 times too many already. Scariest story imaginable, the most terrifying story in human history. Japan's top baby formula maker joins the race to feed American kids. My God. Joins the race to feed American kids. Japanese top baby formula maker. This is not somebody you want to be trusting. Happens to be one of the reasons we have a poll tonight, is that particular story. Should evil Japan be charged with mass genocide due to shipping deadly radioactive waste worldwide? Look, somebody actually said no. What the fuck? How is that even possible? Who the fuck could be that stupid they voted no? Who out there is actually that stupid they were able to log onto a computer and actually vote no on a subject like that? That is astounding. Let's hope they never get a car license or have children, for fuck's sakes. They plan to enter the $5.9 billion U.S. baby formula market. Japan does. Anybody think this is not artificially created to do exactly this? It's way too scripted for me. Japan's largest maker of baby formula is the very last people you want to be trusting. That is fucking scary. I'd rather have Ted Bundy babysit my children than these creatures. We are scraping together inventory for the U.S. market. Well, Fukushima's got lots of shit there. They would give it to you, actually. If you're going to poison all the babies in America, they'd probably give it to you. You shouldn't grow food anywhere in Japan. 100% should be a crime. They should be invaded and stopped from producing and growing food and shipping it worldwide. In its home market of Japan, the nation's low birth rate, because they're feeding and consuming radiation constantly now for 11 plus years. They're not that far from Tokyo, nuclear wasteland Tokyo. We covered that earlier. Yeah, this is a disaster. It's one of the scariest stories we're going to have for quite a long time is that Japan is shipping baby food. Well, United Kingdom lifted all restrictions on Fukushima baby food several years ago. Let that sink in. Try wrapping your mind around that crazy. Dumping Fukushima water into the Pacific plan is blasted. It's already dumped in. I think they've been doing for 11 years. Because a lot of people think they're recovering the water and putting it in tanks. A lot of people are just fucking stupid. Literally stupid. Incapable of comprehending anything. I got it in tanks, Stan. It's all good. Okay, stupid. I'm going to fuck you up Christmas and give you a pair of shoes with laces in them. You'll never go outdoors again because you won't know how to tie them. It's not even worth reading because it's such a fucking, excuse the language, I'm sorry folks, I get carried away sometimes. There's 4 reactors melted down. Another whale spotted in Seine River. He's not quite into the freshwater area yet where the killer whale recently died. We're seeing this all over the world where whales go up in the freshwater, go up and die in freshwater rivers. We've never seen it before in history, pre-Fukushima. Now we see it everywhere. It's not entered the fresh water, and its health appears to be good. So what the fuck is it doing up in the middle of nowhere? Sorry, folks. Obviously, I should probably give up the stream at this point if I start talking like that. What time is it? Well, the problem is I have a very low tolerance to the nuclear industry. It's just so many, 7 decades of genocide. It's very difficult to have any tolerance for these disgusting parasites. I'm not here every night because I'm bored. I'm here every night driven by pure hate of this industry. Sperm whales are following trawling vessels off our coastline because they're DFO, Department of Fisheries and non-Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And this is not too far from me. So, when whales are following ships looking for handouts, what does that mean? They're starving to death. New study. Every time you hear the word new study, you just want to just vomit. New study dives into what's killing the world's largest fish. They eat plankton, by the way. Whale sharks. They eat plankton. Plankton is one of the first things to be wiped out by radioactive fallout because it lives at the surface. It's the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. A girl was seriously injured in a shark attack. One of her family members went out and fought the shark off the girl and brought her in. That's something, man. Shark attacks increased around the world in 2021, following 3 consecutive years of decline. Our dead man tells no tales. I'm not really sure. Columbia Wildlife Trust issues bird flu warning. Columbia, which is right alongside of a nuclear wasteland Sellafield, who produced studies saying that the cancer clusters and leukemia clusters in children were caused by the common colds, who grow food there for 70 years in a nuclear wasteland and ship it to the local supermarkets. Why would you trust anything like that? Macron is facing Fukushima-style horror accident as EDF reactors crack, force shutdowns. What's going on? Because over half of France's fleet, because their reactors were all built at the one time, they all break down at the one time from the neutron bombardment, right? But they had a couple of major flaws. We've been talking about it for like 5 years now. But now this year, how many is it? I can't remember. Half the fleet is shut down. EDF, which is France's nuclear government agency. Yeah, because the cracks in the cooling system could cause a meltdown, see? So 4 1,500 megawatts, 7 1,300 megawatts, 1 900 megawatt reactors are shut down because of that particular problem. And see the picture alongside them? Nuclear power plants surrounded by food. And here's other reactors that had to shut down, surrounded by farms. It's absurd, isn't it? Just evil. All other reactors will like to be checked for these issues within the next year. We had polls. Should it be illegal to grow food in a nuclear wasteland? Everybody agreed. Or around nuclear power plants, everybody agreed 100%. 100% should be a crime. Expert. Fukushima will end very, very badly. Nobody knows how to stop it. Right, the current generation is the inbreeds of the inbreeds of the inbreeds of the inbreeds that built them originally and designed them, see? And they hate all life on the planet. Every inch of all life on the planet, they hate it. So Japan promotes the idea you're racist if you avoid their food from nuclear wasteland. Ooh, alrighty. I guess that's it. Mama, don't let your children grow up to be pro-nuclear scumbags. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be pro-nuclear degenerate scumbags. Dan, play some music if you're going to have music. Just don't sing again, please. Okay. I hear you. It's hard to believe DCA is just snuffing out a mole on top of everything else. The DCA is for cancer. It's perfect for cancer. It converts how the cancer cell operates and the self-destruct. It's very effective too. John Curtis, good night, Tinker, Albert, James Lucid. Hi, James. Mana atomic gold mixed with DCA would fix. That's an interesting question, actually. John Shiflett, Dana Nasana, hi Dana. Patrick, good night everybody. Skill, Wilta. I love these difficult names, but blah, 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 blah. Bobby, Peaceware, Albert, good night everybody. Great Pacific Gamma Shine. That's hilarious. Kevin Blanche, hi Kevin. Angel's Place, yeah, thank you. Jack Tripper, Swanee D is out there. Hugs for Colette, yes. Stephen Young, hopefully he's doing okay. And of course for everybody. Just going to zip down, do a quick good night to the people that happen to be in the chat room. It's always fun. Snakes and doggies. The wise person. Richard and McCann. Hopefully I don't miss anybody. I always seem to for some reason, but I usually only miss the people that comments one or two times. I might miss them because I don't see their name. But even after all this time, I still manage to miss one or two people each time I do a shout out. I'm trying my best. Steve White. And name I couldn't pronounce earlier. I think that was Shayla. Invisible Rabbit. Oh my goodness, eh? We got a bit of a spammer there tonight. Probably Craig, right? He's pretty creepy. Oh well, that's the way it works. You can't. There's always the nuclear industry is going to troll us anyway. There's not much we can do about it. Rude and crude. What do you think the starfish said to the whale? Fukushima killed us boat. I think was the answer to that one. I can't find it. That's always my luck. Looks like we made it. Okay, looks like we're doing pretty good. So, what I do, hi Nick, I think I got everybody. I'm trying my best. Let's end the poll right here. With 45 votes, 98%. Should evil Japan be charged with mass genocide due to shipping deadly radioactive food worldwide? Was a resounding 98% of the people said, fuck yeah. Absolutely, man. Hi, Dana. It's all good, man. Thank you, John. Peace where don't wade in the ocean, sadly, yeah. Kevin Blanche got the answer. Fukushima killed my food. To James's riddle. Darlene. Okay, I got almost everything. Rock, Nemeth, you're welcome. John, Curtis. I think I got everybody this time. I'll read comments later and be like, why the fuck did I miss that person? Excuse the language. I'm not Timberwolf. Super happy we got Moby Dick on chemo. Super happy we got the DCA. That's a big deal. And to see half the mold disappear in a little over 3 days, that makes me feel good, right? Okay, you wonderful folks. We'll see everybody. Hi, Nailhead. You wonderful people. We'll see you tomorrow night, where we'll beat the shit out of the nuclear industry with one hand behind our back. Have a great night, great day tomorrow. God bless everybody. See everybody on the next show. Take care, folks. Thank you, Global, Nailhead, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see everybody tomorrow night now. Yeah, you too, Adam. Good night, folks. Good night, Angel's Place. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming by. It's a big deal. Appreciate it. We'll see everybody tomorrow at tomorrow's show. We got lots and lots of stuff to cover. Let's get on it again. Yeah, thank you, Colette. I see ya. It's awesome. Have a good night, folks. Take care.